And we are live. Welcome to MLB Live Before Lock. The playoffs are here. It's Tuesday, October 1st. I'm Josh Engleman here to break it all down. We're going to take a look at each one of these games. We're going to build out some lineups in the single game sim. It's going to be a good one. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman. What's good, y'all? We got baseball today. Astros, Tigers leading it off. Orioles, Royals at 4 o'clock. Brewers, Mets at 5:30. And then Padres and Braves tonight at 8:30 and change. Ryan says, who else is batshit crazy like me and stacking the Tigers? I don't think it's that crazy. We got to remember, for top stacks during the playoffs, everything is way closer than it feels like it would be on a random slate. Like, there's no Colorado hiding out here, being all weird. Let me add top stacks and top pitchers so we can talk about it. But I mean, as I look at it, it's not like Detroit is like so far off the path. Are they last in top stack? Yeah, they are. But, and even I'm more negative on them than we are. Stochastic has them 9.5% to be the top stack. I have it at 6.5%, but even still, 6.5% isn't all that crazy. I also have the high mark at the Brewers at 16. So, like, yeah, there's a gap, but nothing that I think is too crazy. I fully expect when my sim is done to be over the field on Detroit. Kenny says, Josh, glad you're good. Heard North Carolina got rocked with the storm last week. So for me, for the most part, everything here was fine, especially at my house. Like, it was just rain. Like, there was nothing all that interesting. Carolina Beach, which is essentially me as well, did flood out pretty bad. This is also an area that does flood from time to time. It's actually where you wouldn't have expected it. It is Western North Carolina that is a huge problem, particularly mountain towns. These are places that, they never expected to flood, and they got, biblical rains that overflowed basically every major body of water and ruined everything. I mean, there are multiple places that were essentially just like wiped off the map. I spent a lot of time in Asheville over my life, place that my wife and I like to go pretty regularly. They got destroyed in the low-level sections of Asheville. Really, really bad water damage. But there are a couple towns that, the main river is near the main street of town, and that street is just no longer a street. All those buildings are gone, or at the very least are piles of rubble. It's a bummer, man. It's really sad. It's a section that it's just a place where you don't expect to worry about flooding, and they got 100-year plus flood. So anybody in Western North Carolina, I'm gonna go ahead and assume that you're probably not watching this at this moment, but I hope it all works out. I know that they're doing a bunch of like fundraisers and collections for water and things like that at some spots in Wilmington this weekend that we might try to hit up and donate a little bit. But it's really bad. It's tough to watch. I don't think anybody wants me to talk about this too much. And yeah, Steve, you are correct. First NFL season with me at Stochastic. I had to bail. I actually went to Asheville to get away from Hurricane here, which hit pretty well. We had a pretty big tree go down, and we got lucky, landed in between our houses. Then we had one go down, and it was like leaning against our shed, but ultimately we dodged all of that. If water got to my front door at our previous house, then all of Wilmington was going to be underwater because we were, a good 30 feet above sea level at a minimum. But yeah, I had to bail like 6 months into the work. I packed up the computer, put it in a hotel room in Asheville, and we got to work. But now, let's get into it. Let's talk some baseball. We've got plenty of time. We're going to go until we're done. If it's an hour, great. If it's 45 minutes, also great. My sim is finished, so I can take a look and see what we have right away in terms of the lineups that I will be playing. And we can get an idea of what those exposures are going to be. We'll touch on every game at least a little bit. We're still technically waiting on the Braves starter. By all accounts, that's going to be Bryce Elder. But as of 15 minutes ago, that has not officially been confirmed that I've seen. But my expectation is that it's Bryce Elder, which I don't think is a very good thing for the Braves. But I don't really know who else it could possibly be unless they just go for like a really weird bullpen game. But my expectation is that it's Elder, and I ran my sim as if it's Elder. I did get to 11% of the Tigers, so that was expected. The team that I got the most of is the Royals. Second most is the Brewers. The team that I'm getting to the least is the Houston Astros. But let's go game by game and take a look through it. DK doesn't have Elder. Choke hold him. Sure they do. He's 6K. And he showed up in 0% of my lineups. Let's start it off on the Astros and Tigers game, though, since that's the first game. I assume that's the one people want to hear about the most, at least at this moment. And if we get a Brave starter at some point in time, we could talk through it at least a little bit. Framber Valdez going for Houston. He's 8,500. Tariq Skubal going for Detroit, 9,600. Skubal, 24% owned. I only got to 2%, which I think is very interesting considering I'm not getting the Astros either. And then Framber Valdez on the opposite side, 43% owned. Framber Valdez is the highest owned pitcher. Extra. It 100% cannot be Ian Anderson. Ian Anderson is not on the postseason roster. I will guarantee that it is not Ian Anderson. Could be AJ. That one is more possible, but it cannot be Ian Anderson. That much I can tell you. Yeah, so Smith Shawver or Bryce Elder, probably not going to matter too much. I definitely don't care at all what DraftKings has listed. That much I can tell you. There is nothing less important. But whether it's Smith Shawver or Elder, I don't think it's going to matter all that much. But if you're going in with the thought process that it's Ian Anderson, that one is going to be wrong no matter what. Which shouldn't be all that surprising, considering he hasn't thrown a major league pitch in 3 years. So, Valdez, to me, is a guy that it's pretty hard to get away from. There's certainly some strikeouts in the Tigers lineup. And the fact that Valdez is 8,500. Yeah, there you go. If they're both 6K, then it truly does not matter. That couldn't be less meaningful. I like Valdez in this spot. Maybe a hair over-owned, north of 40%. I'm getting a little bit lower to Michael King and Freddie Peralta. But I am getting Valdez. He's in 35% of my stuff. I think it's very easy to want to get there. We're talking about, the team with the lowest implied total in Detroit. I think the value for Valdez looks really good. 35% chance of being a top 2 pitcher I got it at 34%. So we're talking about the exact same number. Skubal is a guy that I am like perpetually low on. Now he's 9,600 in this spot. It is as bad of a spot as you could really get to from a fantasy perspective. I mean, the Astros really just do not strike out. Based on Steamer projections, they have 7 guys in their lineup with a 19% or lower K rate, including Altuve at 15, Tucker at 15, Bregman at 11, Diaz at 17, Pena at 16, Dubon at 13. Like, these guys just do not strike out. And if we want to look at the active roster for Houston this year against lefties, strikeout rate, Houston is 27th in baseball, 18.8% K rate. Look, obviously, Tariq Skubal is a fantastic pitcher. But in terms of acquiring fantasy points, I'm a little bit more dubious today because of how bad the strikeout matchup is. It scares me a little bit. I got to be honest. I like the idea of getting to Framber Valdez way more than I like the idea of getting to Tariq Skubal. Because we're just talking about two completely different matchups. This is lefty-lefty. And we have Detroit, 5th in strikeout rate at 26%. And then you have Houston basically the exact opposite of what that is. Yeah, MLB.com still has a TBD. I don't see anything on Twitter yet that's pointing out who that's going to be, but none of it matters. None of it matters, especially with Elder and Smith-Shawver being the same price. But yeah, just don't use Ian Anderson. So looking at this Houston and Detroit game, I've got the most exposure to Matt Vierling in that leadoff spot, MPE, third base and outfield, 3,900. I like the flexibility of Vierling at the top. I certainly find the Tigers to be more interesting than Houston. They're comparably owned-ish, although really it's the Padres and the Brewers are separating from ownership, and then everybody else is basically the same. You know, like the Tigers are like 9% and the Astros are 11. Like that's, for all intents and purposes, that's the same. I'd rather get to the Tigers bats for sure. Because while Skubal might not have a great strikeout matchup, he's still a lot better of a talent than Framber Valdez is. It's not going to be easy work for the Astros. Maybe Skubal doesn't get 8 Ks, but he can still limit Houston. And I would imagine like Skubal gets the longest leash of anybody that's pitching on today's slate. But in terms of exposure, I mean, I only got Altuve, Bregman, Diaz, and Caratini into 2 lineups. I have 10+% of Ibanez, Perez, Malloy, and Vierling. So if we're going back to the messaging from the beginning of the show about rostering the Tigers, I don't think it's crazy at all. I mean, they're my 5th most exposed team. And I am way lower on the Tigers than we are. 3 percentage points in top stack, 4 percentage points in top value. But that doesn't seem to matter as much to me. I think the Valdez ownership is carrying a lot of weight. And then I think the Tigers are just simply getting a little bit underrepresented. 97 WRC plus for the Tigers this year against lefties. Houston is at 126. No team in baseball this year has had a better performance against left-handed pitchers than the Houston Astros this year. 126 WRC plus. So that, I don't mind this. Because I look at Skubal and I think, well, this is a bad strikeout matchup. I don't really want to get there. But then you look at Houston, it's like, well, yeah, they're really good. But maybe that's just enough to win a game and not necessarily win a slate. I mean, Stochastic has the Astros 7th in top stack, 8th in top value. That's hard to get to, especially for the middle of the pack owned team. So as I see it, I'm happy to be light on Houston. I'm very happy to have some flyers on the Tigers. But the best thing that you can get to in Houston and Detroit is Framber Valdez. There's too much strikeout upside here for Valdez. Oh, I rock noobs. I was just going to pull that up. Framber 7+ strikeouts is -105. Skubal 7+ strikeouts is +135. So yeah, like you're getting essentially the same strikeout prop for Valdez and Skubal, but you're paying $1,100 less for Framber Valdez. I think that's really appealing. Once Valdez is out, all the lefty bats come into play. Yeah, we got to remember, the playoffs get weird. You are way more likely to have situational pinch hitters happen earlier in a game. Now, for Houston, there are guys that, like, whether you have Altuve, Alvarez, Tucker, Bregman, like, those guys aren't coming out of the game. So it's more about, like, the stands that you want to take on guys that can very easily be pinch hit for late. Like, Jake Myers, for instance, is a high likelihood of seeing a lefty bat come in like the 5th or the 6th in a situation that might matter. Like, Altuve is not leaving the field. So you do want to be extra cautious and conscious of, especially in matchups with lefties on the hill to start, of how quickly that can turn around and who are the guys that are most likely to leave a game in those scenarios. Orioles Royals. So this is the spot that I have the biggest stand on. I have more of Kansas City than I have of any other team. I'm 2xing the field on the Royals. They're starting Cole Ragans. He's 22% owned. I'm right around the field there. Corbin Burns on the opposite side. He's 20% owned. I'm a little light there. Friend of the program, Adam Scher, going to that Orioles game today. The moment he told me he got the tickets, I told him I bet against Corbin Burns. So now we're really cheering for the Royals. It'll be a lot more fun to rub this one in Adam's face. But I'm heavier on the Royals. So the Royals are sort of like the inverse of that last game. Stochastic has Kansas City at 10.5% to be the top stack. I have it at 13.5%. So I am just simply higher on Kansas City than we are. And that's showing in the exposures, whether that's Massey. I mean, even at 6,200, Bobby Witt, I believe, is my most exposed hitter. Yes. Bobby Witt in more lineups than anybody else for me, 46%. Pasquantino for 4,100, lefty righty. Don't forget, lefty power plays up here. So Pasquantino looks really good. MJ Melendez at 3K. I bet him already, I think, for 2+ total bases. Heavy exposure. So it's Massey, Witt, Pasquantino, Melendez. Second base, shortstop, first base, outfield. Really easy 4-person stack. And then that 5th person can be Salvador Perez at catcher. You can grab another outfielder if you want in Tommy Pham or Kyle Isbell. So I really like the Royals. In particular, the value component of Kansas City is tough to ignore. Outside of Bobby Witt being 6,200, and obviously a $6,200 Bobby Witt is not the wrong price to lock down a shortstop. The next most expensive guy in the Royals lineup is 4,400. These guys are really easy to get to, whereas the Orioles on the opposite side are not easy to get to. Stochastic has them 7th in value. I have them 8th. You know, you've got Gunnar at 6K, but I mean, think about it like this. This might be a controversial statement, but like Bobby Witt should be more than $200 more expensive than Gunnar Henderson. Because you're getting Bobby Witt on the road. So even in the 2-hole, I think Bobby Witt has as many plate appearances as Gunnar Henderson. And then Bobby Witt is just a better hitter than Gunnar by quite a bit, I would say. So I really like the Royals side. I find the Orioles side really difficult to get to. The fact that they're 12% owned, that's a pretty big number for how costly these guys are. Now they're flexible. You go short, MPE second and third, outfield first, catcher for 1 through 5. So I like that piece. But these guys are more like properly owned than a team you want to squeeze some value from. I think the Orioles are kind of tough to get to. Not as tough as Houston, but I definitely prefer the Kansas City side. It's really interesting. I'm more interested in Kansas City than Baltimore, like raw data. And that's flip-flopped on Stochastic. Tend to think that the Stochastic number is a little bit more accurate. I'd probably land in like that 11% top stack odds for Kansas City range if we want to make some like manual adjustments. But pitching, this is not where I'm getting to for like a stand of pitching. Burns under the field, Reagan's under the field. The stands that I want to take here are coming from the Kansas City side. And a lot of it just has to do with positionality. Second base, shortstop, first base, very easy to fill. 1, 2, 3 on the road. 2 of those 3 guys hit from the left side. Lefty power is better in Baltimore. I cannot be mad at all that Kansas City is my most exposed stack. And I'm not mad at all that the Baltimore Orioles are a little bit less represented. Kansas City bumping up a little bit in top stack? Okay. Let me grab it. Oh, yeah, we got a refresh 2 minutes ago. Good to know. Let me drop those updated charts in. Top stack in. Top pitcher in. We put Elder in, so surely the moment that I sent out the message to put Elder in, I'm sure it's going to be Smith-Shawver now. So yeah, all right, Royals creeping up a little tiny bit. They're up 0.5%. Getting closer to me here. Marvin, does stacking strategy stay the same for playoff baseball, or is roster construction different? Doesn't really change for me. I'm still looking to get a 4 or a 5 man. At least on a 4-game slate. As the slate sizes go down, it's a little bit different. But for a full 4-gamer, I'm playing it normally. Now, the game I have the most of is Brewers Mets. Over the field on the Brewers, over the field on the Mets. But that's also not stopping me from getting to Freddie Peralta. Peralta, my most exposed pitcher here against the Mets. So I have 68% Peralta. He's in 2 out of every 3 lineups that I have. But when I don't have Peralta, I am getting to the Mets. 7 Mets hitters in at least 10% of my lineups. The only guys that I'm not getting to, Jose Iglesias. Don't mind that at all. Not a good hitter. And then JD Martinez, who just has better options around him, whether that's Alonso at first or Nimmo in the outfield. So let's talk through Peralta. 7,900. What have the Mets done against righties this year? New York Mets against righties, 111 WRC plus. So that's a little scary. 12th in strikeout rate. So, basically an average strikeout matchup. It's just the price here. Oh, yeah, the Mets lineup came out right before this started, didn't it? Yeah. Yeah, Mets lineup came out 20 minutes ago. No JD. Not that it matters. KJ, that's not how this works. Do I like Corbin Burns over 1.5 earned runs allowed? Don't know. Not typically a prop that I look at. That's usually a prop that I don't really find a lot of value in earned run props, because I think that's the easiest piece of anything to project. You're really just talking about, what percentage of runs get attributed to, what percentage of the game total gets attributed to the pitcher. So I don't think that they break down all that well. No, again, KJ, it's like every day we got to do this. That's not how this works, because there are salaries in fantasy sports and no salaries in sports betting. Whether I like the Royals or not has nothing to do with Corbin Burns. If the Royals are $1,000 underpriced across the board, getting more of the Royals is easy, and it has no impact because it's their price tags that are driving it. We're talking about two completely different things. Sports betting and fantasy have very little overlap because of salary constructions. If you didn't have salaries and you just picked whoever you wanted, then yeah, the Burns prop lines would carry more weight, but they don't. You have a constraint to salary. So what you feel about a prop on the opposite side is not going to impact your exposures. Not to any real degree. You can find like over 1.5 earned runs. You could have that as a 5% EV bet, which is a really good bet. It has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not the Baltimore or the Royals are getting stacked. There's no synergy to that information at all. So Brewers, Mets, most exposure. Top of the Brewers lineup looks great. Turang, Churio, Contreras, Mitchell, Adames. Is that what we got? Turang, Churio. All right, Mitchell and Contreras are flip-flopped. Then Adames. Bowers, Hoskins. All right, so it's Frelick in, Perkins out. Ortiz still in. All right, so I didn't really have Perkins to begin with. I don't expect to have Frelick either. Yes, Ram. Thank you. I appreciate it. I think that was a pretty good explanation. Got to turn that light up one notch. Ooh, there we go. The Mets side looks good too, though. Even against Peralta. Whether that's Nimmo, Lindor, Mark Vientos, not all that difficult to get to. Middle of the pack in terms of value. Kind of middle of the pack in terms of top side. They're dead perfect. 4th in top stack at Stochastic, 5th in value. That's the middle of the pack. 5th in ownership. These guys are just smack dab in the middle. But because the top of their lineup is so easy to get to, shortstop, second base, third base, outfield, first, I think they're pretty stackable. And then, if you want to go to Francisco Alvarez, it's a decent way to try to buy a cheap home run. I got to send a message to our data team. All right, message in. Still nothing on MLB.com. So we'll figure out where that goes. What do you guys like here in Brewers Mets? Because Brewers are the number 2 team in ownership, just behind the Padres. 2nd in top stack on Stochastic, 1st in value. I have it 1st and 1st, but not a huge separation. And then you've got Severino on the opposite side, who I'm not all that enamored with. I think we're talking about, a league average pitcher? 412 xFIP on the season over 182 innings. 422 Sierra, a 101 xFIP. Severino's nothing special here. So, yeah, a completely average starter. 2 WAR, that's an average player. So, I love getting to the Brewers. There's a lot of power potential here. It's a park that plays up power. Now, again, we're talking about a team that is essentially the chalk team. The Padres and the Brewers are tier 1 for ownership. But even still, not a single Brewers bat is projecting north of 20%. 19% seems to be the threshold. But the top of the order is just really easy to get to. And the salaries are easy to get to. William Contreras is the most expensive bat in this lineup. He's only $4,700. iRock Noobs. Any preference on Hoskins and Mitchell versus Bowers and Churios? Same salary and same positional eligibility. So Hoskins, Mitchell. All right. Well, here's what I can say. I have Rhys Hoskins and Jake Bowers projected the exact same. So obviously Bowers looks a little bit better than by saving $800. And then Mitchell versus Churios, or Mitchell versus Churio, sorry. I have Jackson Churio by a fantasy point. It's actually a little bit less than that, considering Mitchell is hitting in the 3 hole. So it's probably like 0.7 or 0.8. So if you're asking me, I think the Churio Bauer side is better. I think you get a higher projection for the same amount of salary. But I don't have much of a swing there. I mean, you can kind of see it. Like the Mitchell and Churio piece are pretty similar relative to ownership, but you can see it in my exposures. I got twice as much of Bowers as I did for Hoskins, and that's because you're just getting the same amount of fantasy points for $800 cheaper. That was always naturally going to happen unless Bowers was like 15 or 16% owned. Then that kind of changes things. Is Ortiz a good play? I mean, good is relative in that there's probably only like 8 third basemen available. I'm right around the field. I think he's negatively leveraged. Like, he's not a guy that I'm super excited to get to. But on a day like today, I don't want to say that everybody's a good play because I don't mean it like that. But when you're limited in the amount of people that you could put at any given position, like there are 10 available third basemen today. And the range of ownership is 9 to 16. So like you're not really separating anything there. I have no issue at all going to Joey Ortiz. Do I think he's the worst third baseman that you can get to? I do. But even the worst third baseman today succeeds, 5 to 10% of the time. So big stand Peralta, not a big stand on Severino. Then we get to my Braves. Michael King and Bryce Elder. King is the other, Michael King and pitcher to be named later, whether that's Bryce Elder or AJ Smith-Shawver or both. Someone is pitching for the Braves. I don't think you want to go to the Braves starter. It's a tough matchup here against San Diego. Lineup's loaded. Lots of power to try to deal with. I want to get to Michael King. I mean, this is not an illustrious Braves lineup in comparison to what it actually could be. I mean, obviously they're missing basically, 2 of their 3 best hitters. You could say 2 of their 2 best hitters if you want, but 2 of their 3 at a minimum. So I want to get to King. I think the $8,100 price tag is really important here. 33% top pitcher odds. I have it at 34. So that is the exact same number. I think myself and Stochastic are pretty dialed in to Michael King. I want King and Peralta to carry the most weight of any of my pitchers. Now, from a hitting perspective, I'm kind of interested in the Braves because of the amount of ownership that Michael King is getting. I am over the field on Atlanta in the aggregate. They're the second lowest owned team. And while the Padres are the chalk team for today, I'm at like a third of the field. Only guy I got in double digits is Tatis, and he is the chalk play from San Diego. So for me to get different, there was always going to have to be a team that was getting some ownership that I wouldn't really get to. And it appears to be the chalk Padres. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that whoever's starting for the Braves is probably not going to carry enough ownership to be as interesting. I think that's why that's happening. The other problem here for the Padres is they're like sort of an optimizer team because they're not that bad of a value. I've got them third. Stochastic has them third. Tatis and Machado are the only guys over 5K. They both deserve their prices. So like they're kind of easy to roster. You can buy a cheap homer with Higashioka if you need to. Yeah, I'm not going to worry too much about the Braves having to play 2 games yesterday and then show up today. That's not a worry of mine. I'm more worried about the fact that I just don't think Atlanta's very good. That's probably a bigger issue. Overall hitters. Most exposed guys. Bobby Witt, Bryce Turang, Michael Massey, MJ Melendez, Pasquantino, William Contreras. That's everybody I have in 30% of my lineups. I do have a pretty sizable stack of no exposures. Oddly enough, the only guy whose name there concerns me is the fact that I don't have a single share of Kyle Tucker, but, you know, it happens. But yeah, Royals, Brewers, Mets, top 3 stacks. Is it a bad idea to run Valdez and Skubal in the same lineup? Nope. No, it isn't. We can touch on my pitching exposures quickly, and then we can build out a lineup. I'm going to build a lineup and play it in single entry today. So we're actually going to take one from the single lineup sim and use it in the, I don't know what the hell it's called. Whatever the $12 single entry is. What is the base hit? I threw one entry into the base hit so that we could build a lineup for that contest. It's going to be a lot of Peralta and King. Valdez right around the field, but Skubal is not a guy I'm getting to. A little scary for sure. I just think he's a little bit overowned and a little bit too expensive for what we've got going on here. Reagan's around the field. A little light on Burns. A little light on Severino. Whatever shows up for Atlanta, not happening. I think the most important thing you guys should know is the fact that Michael King and Freddie Peralta are the 2 best pitchers you can get to today. All right, hit that like button if you haven't done it yet. Holy shit, how many people are watching this? There's 500 of you on YouTube right now. I'm so used to doing the strategy show at 9 o'clock in the morning and the crew being a little thin. But it's nice to have everybody here today. Let's build some lineups. Single game sim incoming. The czar is here to let everybody know how to build the goods. Boom. Josh is the Mahomes of DFS. I hope you mean Patrick and not Jackson. Because that could be good or bad. All right. So I don't think you guys will be surprised to know that I'm going to go to Valdez and Michael King. They are going to be my 2 pitchers. And if I have those guys, in theory, I would want to get to Houston, which I'm not going to do. And in theory, I would want to get to San Diego, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to go to the team that I have the most of, which is the Kansas City Royals. And then we'll probably fill out with one of Houston or San Diego. So, Kansas City. Salvador Perez. Vinny Pasquantino. Bobby Witt. Michael Massey. And then I'm going to go MJ Melendez. Eric, they've been traveling across the country for 6 months. I mean, like, their body clock is no more on East Coast time than it would be any other time. I also don't think they prepare. But I'm probably oversimplifying that. All right, we need a third baseman and 2 outfielders. We have $4K to spend on each spot. The best third baseman you can get to is Manny Machado, which does open us up to getting to San Diego. And if we do that, We're not going to be able to get Tatis. We're actually not going to be able to get to a 3-man San Diego stack at all. So I'm going to get Profar. And then, I can take Mauricio Dubon. And we got it. So this is lineup number 1, first try. Let's see how we do. It's going to be ROI negative 0.3. All right. All right. That's fine. Projection, ownership, ROI. So first run got us 91.93. Ownership got us 184.04. ROI negative 0.3. We're going to have to do a lot better than that. So first thing that's coming out is Machado, Profar, Dubon. So if we can't get Machado, technically Jordan Westburg is the next best option. Oh, I took the wrong person out. Let's get Bobby Witt back in there. So if we can go to Westburg, can we turn this into a KC Baltimore game stack? Colton Cowser. No, we cannot. And then Garrett Mitchell. 92.75 and 192. So we improved it by a point. We went up in ownership. This one's not going to move that much either. Up to 21.9. All right. Or 20.9. Sorry. So we're unlocking it slowly but surely. I think I have to make a small tweak to the Kansas City side of this one. And I'll show you why. I think we need the value of someone like Kyle Isbell over Salvador Perez. So I'm going to get Isbell in, Perez out. Now it's catcher, third, outfield. And I think we're going to have a little bit easier time building this one out. Because we weren't getting good value out of Salvador Perez. Now, we could look at Diaz at catcher. We could look at Bregman at third. This would have to be Jake Myers, or the best possible outfielder that we could take here would be Jackson Churio. That leaves me 600. I only lost 0.4 of a point, but I did gain 10 percentage points in ownership. This one could be better. Yeah, Braden, I might get to a 4-4. $20.9 on the dot again. All right. So I don't know if I can go Garcia. Garcia is not going into the lineup. He might be their worst value. That's not going to get me an ROI I want. He's the worst possible option for Kansas City. Maybe we can pull one name out of this and make things a little bit better. I can't take out Witt. I don't want to take out Isbell because he is the best value option here. I guess technically I can get to Yuri Gurriel. That gets me to 5. Maybe that's where I take out Isbell. And we go 4-4. Which would allow me to get Diaz, Bregman. Are there two? There's not going to be two Houston outfielders that I can get to. Dubon. All right, maybe not. So Tucker and then 3,400 left. So technically I can get Myers. And there's your 4-4. 90.38, 168. It'll be interesting to see the dynamic of ownership there. Because that's a big ownership discount compared to where we were before. Negative 3.3. All right. I'm starting to think Kansas City's tough. We got about 15 minutes to go, so I need to hunt down something good. Which means we're going to go to the lineup that I don't want to build. All right, there we go. So we're going to clear this bad boy out. And I'm going to go to the Brewers. This is not what I want to do. But this is the best combination of price, which means Peralta has to go in this lineup once again. And then we're going to get Bryce Turang, Jake Bauers, Garrett Mitchell, William Contreras, and I'm going to go to Willy Adames. Third base, outfield, and one more pitcher. So we're back in this third base problem once again. If I go Machado, this feels impossible. Machado, Merrill, Profar leaves me 8,500 at pitcher. That gets me Michael King. 5-3, Brewers, Padres, with Brewers, Padres pitchers. 95-34 projection. 208 ownership. Stacking against Scooble just isn't a good idea. Couldn't disagree more. Wow, still just 5%. Tough slate. Tough slate. Let's get away from San Diego then. Jordan Westberg. Santander and Mullins. Still leaves me Michael King. 94-46 and 197. Okay, so this is a 1.5 north of our best projection here. Barely going up in ownership. This is going to be in the 30s or 40s. Pi Daniels, you could just assume that the feed hasn't gone anywhere. All right, now we're in. Now we're where we need to be. Projection 94-46. Ownership 197-48. ROI 45.2. We're getting there. We're getting there. I'm going to edit my placeholder to be this lineup right now. So that's Peralta, King, Contreras, Bauers, Turang, Westberg, Adames, Mitchell, Santander, and Mullins. All right, so now I have a real placeholder and we have 12 minutes to go. I think we can do better than this, though. Maybe we need to build it in reverse for outfielders. So it can't be Milwaukee. Just out of curiosity. If we go Tucker, Alvarez, Bregman, is that even possible? It leaves us Bryce Elder. No shot here. No shot. This is going to be bad. Oh, 33.5. I guess it's just such a big ownership cut down into the 150s. But I think we're being way too ineffective by going to those Houston dudes. I mean, we could look at Atlanta. Michael Harris, Marcelo Zuna, Gio Urshela, and Framber Valdez. Leaves us 800, 93.2 and 192. I mean, it's going to be better than this top one, worse than this bottom one, I think. 31, 32, something like that. Yeah, 28. I think I could probably get a second Milwaukee outfielder in place of somebody else. And in this case, I'm going to get off a Turang. And instead of Turang, because Turang, we can get a little bit better value by going to Frelick. Then we have second base, third base, outfield. Now we really only want to use Westberg or Altuve. Albies, I guess, but not really a great value. Can we get a full four-man Baltimore or three-man Baltimore now with different positionality? Westberg, Ramon Urias, Santander. Oh, not enough salary. Not even close. Altuve, Bregman, and one of the big boys? And Tucker? Can that happen? It can. Can't unless we go to Elder. So Tucker becomes too much there. I don't think Alvarez saves the day. No, it does not. We would need like $300 more. Thought we had that one. Atlanta, I guess, is the try. Albies, Ursh, Michael Harris. Now, not too much salary. Actually, Albies, Urshela, Harris. Now, which Milwaukee guy can we remove to get to the highest end Braves bat? Which technically is Matt Olson. So Bauer's out, Olson in. We can't take Michael King. So Valdez Peralta with 700 on the table. That ain't going to get it done either. Man. I'm glad we got one built because tough day with these 4 games. Yeah, 15%. We're just living in this like 20% range. Couple more minutes to go before we got to get out of here. 7 minutes to lock. Let's do a crazy one. Jayhawk coming in with an Ian Anderson lineup. Not even playing. Thought we covered that. Must have got here late. Can we just do one that's really bizarre? What does the Tigers stack look like? If we go Tigers and get Andy Ibanez at second, Malloy, Vierling at third, Jake Rogers and Wensiel Perez. God, these guys are going to be free. That'll give us Michael King and Peralta, so we can pay up for pitching, and we have all of the salary in the world for these final 3 spots. Maybe we just have to bail on stacking, and we get Luis Arraez, Bobby Witt, and Tatis. That's $2,200 left over. I couldn't even spend all the salary if I wanted to. That's how cheap the Tigers are. That's still got to 39 with $2,200 left in on this lineup. Immediately, if we take out Jake Rogers and make him, honestly, anybody in this case. I mean, Perez gets us to 4.22. Might be too owned here. Do I like leaving extra salary on smaller slates? Absolutely. Wow. Okay, so that is worse. That 5-man stack is important. I wonder if we turn Arraez into Torque. We can take William Contreras. I can pull Tatis, even though he's the best bat there, and get to Churio. That'll use me 1,900. Got a couple minutes yet. Still trying to hunt down that like 70%er that breaks everything. This isn't going to be it. Yeah, into the 30s. Just having a lot of trouble spending that salary. Like, we could take the best guy at every position and it still doesn't matter at all. Like, if we go Perez, Witt, who's the best KC outfielder? I mean, anybody we want. Tommy Pham. $2,900 left over. A Detroit 5-man is like semi-useless. It really is. If we take out Torque, can we go 4-4? Can that be like Diaz? I don't even want to put Caratini in there. Pena, Tucker, and then any first baseman. Takes us back to Luis Arraez. And leaves $3,000 on the table. This is so silly. This is so hard to do. You can do whatever you want if you want to build a Detroit stack today. Their costs are meaningless. I guess I'll take Perez out and upgrade it to Riley Green just to spend more money. I guess. And then I'll go back to Jake Rogers. And then we can go Pasquantino, Witt. If Kansas City just had one good outfielder, this would be so much better. I can't build a lineup without leaving $2,000 on the table. Pody Jen Stoner. Thanks for your time and insight today, Josh. Good luck, and don't forget about cannabis and snacks for book club tonight. No book club this week. I asked earlier. We don't have one this week. Yeah, 7%. I'm finding it incredibly difficult to actually spend all of the salary necessary, because you can kind of just play whoever the hell you want. William Contreras can go in. And Rhys Hoskins can go in. And Willy Adames can go in. And Churio can go in. And we're just sitting on so much salary. Now, it's not going to matter. We are locking in 1 minute, so this will be the final thing we run, and it's going to be in like that 10% range once again, is my expectation. You can roster whatever. Tigers unlock everything. 29, actually. If I just replace Adames with Bobby Witt, leaves 400 on the table. That's the final click. We're not going to be able to make any changes, but guys, thanks for being here. We're going to do the same thing tomorrow. We're going to go off at 1:30, and barring 4 sweeps, we'll probably be doing the same thing on Thursday, but pay attention on Thursday because the times could change. This could end up looking like a regular live before lock. It could be an early day live before lock. Look at that, 44. Not bad. Not bad at all. Finally got there. Guys, thanks for being here. Go Braves. That's the most important thing that is going to happen today. The Atlanta Braves will pick up game 1 against the San Diego Padres on the back of Greg Maddux or Tom Glavine. Wow, it's so much worse when you go to Perez. Whoever's starting for the Atlanta Braves today, it doesn't matter. Padres ain't shit. Talk to you guys later. Have some fun tonight. There we go.